And the family of mankind has to stand up for peace and truth. We need to form an alliance, such as humanityforpeace.net. Join us on humanityforpeace.net. We will organize worldwide actions and rallies on the 6th of August, the day of Hiroshima. We want to raise our voices worldwide in every country, in every nation of the world, to raise our voices against war and nuclear escalation. Join us on humanityforpeace.net. We have only one planet, and we will stand up for it.
This Sunday, August 6th, there will be an important peace rally held in New York at the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza near the United Nations from 1 to 4 p.m. The rally, called Humanity for Peace, is hosted by a coalition of 20 sponsoring organizations, literally ranging all the way from communists on the one hand to libertarians like me on the other, but none of whom are affiliated with the Democratic or Republican parties, and most of whom have absolutely nothing to do with each other than a recognition that the nations of the world are heading in a dangerous direction in terms of the use of military power. I hope you'll join me there. I'll be addressing both the flaws in American policy as well as a path forward to peace and prosperity. After all, it's our government. Shouldn't its policies reflect our values and our interests?
I'm Senator Dick Black, retired. I'm a retired colonel also. I was wounded in fierce fighting with the 1st Marine Division in Vietnam. I'm worried about the reckless and heartless foreign policy this nation is following. I encourage you to attend the Humanity for Peace rally in Manhattan, New York on August the 6th from 1 to 4 p.m. At this moment, no other nation on earth has become more warlike, more aggressive, or militaristic than our own. We've launched unprovoked wars against Serbia, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Yemen. They did nothing to hurt us, yet we sent troops across the globe and killed millions of them. In 2014, we overthrew the government of Ukraine and installed a puppet regime of our own. Then 2 months after the war started, we blocked peace talks that had almost ended the war with very minimum bloodshed. We pushed Ukraine into a hopeless war that's turning them into a nation of widows and orphans. We're imposing a one world government through brutal force. And who profits? The global oligarchs, the kings, the princes, celebrities, bankers, media moguls, and the sons of influential politicians. They all gather at secretive conferences, places like Davos, Switzerland, to decide just how to enrich themselves at the expense of the voiceless mass of humanity. But we've had enough of this. If you'd like to strike back, join the peace demonstration at the United Nations Plaza on August the 6th. With your help, we can turn this around. So do it for the cause of peace and for the future of humanity.
The 6th of August marks the unnecessary bombing of Hiroshima. The reason why it's unnecessary is because the US dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and even though the Japanese knew that they were being nuked, they still continued fighting until the Soviet Union ended the war. This historic example shows us that nuclear weapons are not a way of solving conflicts, but it is diplomacy which solves conflicts. We, as the Workers' and Family Business Party, BKP, think that it is fantastic that American groups are coming together and organizing against this big threat of a third world war, which would be nuclear. We stand with you against the ruling class, pushing for war and destruction in order to exploit the working class. Everyone who is against a third world war should join the protest on August 6th, because we are humanity for peace.
We are the people who are living in this world. We want a future for the coming generations. We are the voices, all those boys and girls. We shall unite all across the nations. We don't want war. We want to keep the peace. So politicians, please listen to us. We don't want war. We don't want to.
Hi, everybody. It's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here, and I want to thank all of the organizers at Humanity for Peace for putting this conference together and for giving me the opportunity to address you. My uncle, John F. Kennedy, once told one of his two closest friends, Ben Bradley, who was the editor of the Washington Post, when Bradley asked him, "What do you want on your gravestone as your epitaph?" My uncle told him he kept the peace. And when Bradley questioned him on that further and pressed him, my Uncle Jack said that the primary job of a president of the United States is to keep the country out of war. And he succeeded in doing that during his 3 years in office. He never sent a combat soldier abroad to die. He kept the country out of Laos. He kept us out of Cuba on 2 occasions. He kept us out of Berlin in 1961. And he kept us out of Vietnam. He sent only 16,000 military advisors there, mainly Green Berets. And on October 22nd, they didn't have permission to fight, although some of them did. And in October of 1962, he learned that one of his Green Berets had died, and he asked his aide to give him a combat casualty list. And the aide came back and said 75 had died so far. He said, "That's too many." And that afternoon, he signed National Security Order 263, ordering all 16,000 troops home, with the first 1,000 coming home beginning at the end of November. And of course, a month after that, right at the end of November, he was killed, and a week later, President Johnson remanded that order. Within a year, Johnson had sent the 250,000 troops that the military had wanted from the beginning. But my uncle understood one thing about war, and it's something we need to understand today. Because today we're closer to a nuclear exchange than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962. My uncle understood that if you want to keep the country out of war, you have to be able to put yourself into the shoes of your adversary. When he came into office, the intelligence agencies and the people around him knew almost nothing about Nikita Khrushchev. President Eisenhower had said that it wouldn't be a soldier, a president who had started out as a soldier who would put Americans into World War III. Because the soldiers knew about it. He was a soldier himself. My uncle had been a soldier, was the only president to win the Purple Heart. And Khrushchev, of course, was a soldier and had been in the most brutal battle of World War II in Stalingrad. But the CIA knew almost nothing about him, because there was a mole in Langley, and all of the people who had, all of the Kremlin officials who had defected to the United States or who had tried to work as spies for the United States were immediately detected. So the CIA knew almost nothing about Khrushchev, and they assumed that everybody in the Kremlin was a monolith. And my uncle felt disabled by that lack of knowledge. And in 1961, he started out his relationship with Khrushchev on a rocky road. They met in Vienna, and he found Khrushchev was pugnacious and bombastic, and had practically dared my uncle to go to war with him. My uncle quickly understood that he himself was surrounded by military war hawks and the intelligence apparatus and the military brass at the Pentagon, who saw a nuclear exchange with Russia as not only unavoidable, but also desirable. When they made a proposition to my uncle to go to war on several occasions, they said that we were going to win that war because we had more missiles than the Russians, which we do not have today. They have 1,000 more than us. But his brass told him that there would be only 30 million American casualties and 130 million Russians, and that would be victory. And my uncle left that meeting saying, and we call ourselves the human race. He knew that he had to. In 1961, in August, there was a confrontation in the Berlin Wall where US tanks were facing down Russian tanks at Checkpoint Charlie. And the world was this close to nuclear war at that point. And my uncle made a back channel cable to Khrushchev, asking him to pull out his tanks. Khrushchev sent a note back to my uncle Cable saying, "My back is to the wall. I have no place to retreat." And my uncle realized at that point that Khrushchev was in the same position that he was. He was also surrounded by military war hawks who were egging for a fight with the United States. And they realized that only the two of them were going to prevent that full-blown nuclear exchange. My uncle made a promise to him that if Khrushchev withdrew his tank battalion, that my uncle would follow within a few hours. And they did that. And afterwards, they trusted each other. And they realized they had to communicate directly with each other. And they began a series of 26 letters that they exchanged with each other, highly personal letters that were smuggled by a Soviet GRU spy named Georgy Bolshakov and run their own State Department, their diplomatic corps, their military and intelligence apparatus. So they were talking directly to each other. They also installed hotlines at Cape Cod, where I live, and those wires are still protruding out of the home of the summer lighthouse, which my brother now owns, and another hotline at the White House, where they could pick up the phone and talk directly to each other. And that's more important today than it ever was. Today, we're in a very analogous situation where we are putting Vladimir Putin in a place where his back is against the wall. And it's a time more than ever that we need to be talking to each other. We have made no effort to talk to the Russian leadership for many, many months, almost a year. And there have been many efforts by the Russian leadership to engage us and engage Ukraine in peace negotiations. And we have rebuffed those. In April of 2022, the Russians, and we now know the Russians and the Ukrainians, initialed a peace agreement that was based upon the Minsk Accords, and the Russians were already beginning to withdraw their troops. And yet the U.S. White House sent Boris Johnson over there to torpedo that deal. We need to be doing the opposite of that. We need to be talking directly with Vladimir Putin and all sides, and we need to settle this insanity before we initiate another nuclear exchange that would destroy all of humanity. So I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, and I want to congratulate you and send you all my gratitude for making this a priority for all of humanity. Thank you very much.
Brothers and sisters, we gather today as the world stares into the abyss of nuclear winter. That long freeze that follows the raging fire of humanity's last war. A cold and dead world, all that remains of a once lush oasis in the vast emptiness of space. We gather because we stand on the precipice of that future, a new ice age of our own making, where the ash of humanity blocks out the sun, where the oceans freeze and the crops perish, where the lights flicker and fade, where famine and plague kill all who survived the blasts, the sudden extinction of almost all life on Earth. The war machine in the West would sooner see the world burn than share its abundant resources. But my spirit calls out in rebellion against the forces of annihilation. My spirit calls out for all who suffer from this war and the countless future generations whose lives hang in the balance. My spirit calls out alongside millions who refuse to accept a destiny written by the most violent among us. We refuse to accept the fate that they have ordained. So long as we draw breath, we will not allow the life of this world to be extinguished.
Hi, this is Jimmy from Lighthouse Germany, Media Evolution Movement. Every war begins with a lie. To end the wars, we need to stop the lies. The independence of journalism is the key to peace and truth. And the family of mankind has to stand up for peace and truth. We need to form an alliance, such as humanityforpeace.net. Join us on humanityforpeace.net. We will organize worldwide actions and rallies on the 6th of August, the day of Hiroshima. We want to raise our voices worldwide in every country, in every nation of the world, to raise our voices against war and nuclear escalation. Join us on humanityforpeace.net. We have only one planet, and we will stand up for it.
Okay, all right, 5 seconds. Okay, switch, go.
Welcome to Humanity for Peace. We are so incredibly grateful for the honored guests, speakers, and participants in this rally that is a coalition of people from across the political spectrum. My name is Dr. Irene Mavrikakis, and this is the co-master of ceremonies and fellow lead organizer, Anastasia Battle.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining this really important moment in history. And it's a very solemn day, August 6th, the first and hopefully only ever use of nuclear weapons done by the United States. And unfortunately, this was done on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 78 years ago. And we are honored to have Reverend Dr. Nagagaki, who will be ringing the Hiroshima bell today with us, Hiroshima Peace Bell. Thank you, please.
Yeah, maybe it might be easier to pass around. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. TK Nakagaki, and so I'm actually Hiroshima Peace Ambassador, also Nagasaki Peace Correspondent. And I've been doing the organizing the Hiroshima Nagasaki Memorial almost 30 years, 30th time this year. So I started 1994 every year on this day, or actually yesterday, because yeah, the exact moment is the 7:15 p.m. or the U.S. time, The Japan time is August 6th, 8:50 a.m. So, but anyway, but I'd like to ring this bell. Actually, peace bell is something always something to do with a peace, because the bell itself is creating the calmness of mind. So it's all connected, not just the outside of the peace, but the inside. And then because if ourself is not peaceful, it's hard to do. Everybody else to do the peace things over the world. So that's why this peace bell should reach to your heart. Everybody's heart to have peace in your heart. No violence, but rather compassion, love. So as I ring the bell, actually there's a little character written here. It says wa ki. It's okay. Wa ki mu go. Wa means peace. Ki means precious, or that is valued. And also next words is no violence or no conflict. So yeah, and so we wanted to have developed the no conflict within ourselves too. We tend to fight with other people, but yet try to understand and try to create the peace and harmony together. So that's the bell that represents. And so all the wish for the Hiroshima Nagasaki is happen to be Japan, but yet it could be happen to any other country. So that's and then even us too, wherever we are. And so it's very dangerous conditions. And so we would like to start with this peace spell. So since we are doing a peace work, why don't we create the peace within ourselves first? And then so I'll ring the 3 bells. First, maybe Hiroshima, and second, Nagasaki, and the third one, Nagasaki, and no more Hiroshima's first one, no more Nagasaki's second one, no more wars and violence in the third one. And also you can create the peace. Okay? Sorry for that long. So that's more like an unpeaceful side of it, but just the words, mind, and body action.
Go up and hug him afterwards.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I hope you can create a peace within all the conflicts, everything that we have. So this is a perfect way that we start this gathering today, I believe. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're going to turn up the sound right now. I like to turn up the sound.
Oh, okay.
We'll just stay here for a minute.
Oh, okay. Taking care of.
You're ready, you're going to introduce the song. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Both together.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Nakagaki, for the honor of bringing the Hiroshima Peace Bell. Next, I would like to invite the Chorus for Peace to the front. And we will be singing a song which is world-renowned as the International Song of Peace, called Dona Nobis Pacem.
No. No, 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 no. Oh. Yeah.
If you look on the leaflet that we were passing out earlier with our statement, on the back, there is music, a music score for Dona Nobis Pacem, and you are welcome to sing with us in this beautiful expression of peace.
Okay. Okay.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, 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 dona nobis pacem. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So it's easier to get closer in, and when you get closer.
Thank you so much. Wasn't that wonderful? I'd like to introduce Reverend Dr. Terry Strong. She will do the invocation and then her speech. Thank you so much.
Just stand up. Miss Terry. I got it. Just click this on. Let's put the live stream. Thank you. Thank you to
Helga Zepp-LaRouche and Anastasia Battle for the opportunity to speak as an advocate for peace. Let us pray. Father God, we come together as one, and we come together for the sake of peace. God, we thank you that you said if we be peacemakers, that you would call us the children of God. And we are grateful for that. And so as we have gathered in the name of peace, God, we ask you to give us wisdom on how to invoke peace in our world. God, we thank you for keeping us safe from all hurt, harm, and danger, seen and unseen, as we journey through the avenues of streets and countries to declare peace. And we thank you for your spirit abiding with us as we endeavor to just spread peace throughout all the land, all your world, God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. I first want to give a few shout outs to my sons, Dr. Andre Strong and Mr. Cameron Hayward, who is also a rapper. To my bishop, Bishop E. Ann Henning Barfield, to my Zeta Phi Beta sisters and Eastern Star sisters, and to my church that I pastor, Mount Sinai AME Church in Arlington, Tennessee, a suburb of Memphis. Hello, peacemakers! Peacemakers around the world, God bless you. As I begin, I want to say the time to talk about peace is before the war begins. The time to talk about peace is before any war begins. The definition of war, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, says it's a state of armed conflict between different countries or different groups within a country, a state of competition or hostility between different people or groups, or a sustained campaign against an undesirable situation or activity. Not all wars are formalized with official declarations of war between combatants. Conversely, not every ongoing armed conflict is classified as a war. And so our challenge today is simply war. The Modern War Institute says there are 5 reasons for war that a government's leaders experience that causes them to pursue war. They are unaccountable, ideological, biased, uncertain, and unreliable. Unaccountable means no oversight. Ideological means we don't think alike. Biased means how I feel is more important than how you feel. Uncertain means I am not sure of the relationship we have, and rather than talk and communicate about it, well, we escalate to violence. And unreliable means I don't feel I can trust you to communicate and negotiate in good faith. More specific reasons are economic and territorial gain, religious differences, nationalism, civil war, and political revolutions. Often the leaders of countries become primary motivators of conflict by instigating war. All these fall in the category of the leaders lacking confidence in themselves and those with whom they should be communicating. Fighting is simply bargaining through violence. When you don't feel confident in your stance of peace through strength. Remembering the war in Afghanistan, we know that once wars start, they become very difficult to end. Between our 2 definitions, there are currently over 30 countries involved in some type of war or conflict as I speak. Countries subject to prolonged conflict can become war-torn countries that require many decades to rebuild their infrastructures, economies, and functions. So what is the solution? Because of the devastating and costly nature it has, war should always be a last resort. with well thought out reasoning and with buy-in from those who will fund and be affected by it, and with the approval of governing bodies and not dictated by a few. Well over $100 billion has been spent on the Russia and Ukraine war alone, not knowing if it's going to be ended peacefully. Therefore, with the financial and weapons pledged, we should demand that there be in place transparency of the need for war and an exit strategy of peaceful means as soon as possible. We should also establish a nonpartisan grassroots World Council of Peace and a joint committee, because a lot of times the people are on one accord when the leaders are not. So I offer you a declaration of hope. There is a movie called Remember the Titans, starring Denzel Washington, that begins with racial division, confusion, hatred, verbal wars, and fist conflicts, and ends with racial peace because they found the commonality of humanity to reach for in unity rather than reaching for division. Therefore, I hope that our reach for the commonality of global humanity for the sake of humanity, which fosters unity and peace, will end the dangers of division and war. The words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. remain true, that says hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So our declaration we offer today is that we declare that unity is more powerful than division. Intelligence is more powerful than ignorance. Wisdom is more powerful than foolishness. Hope is more powerful than doubt. Humility is more powerful than arrogance. Love is more powerful than hate. And peace is more powerful than war. And if we operate our countries from the perspective of unity, intelligence, wisdom, hope, humility, love, and peace, we will be able to live together globally in harmony for all of our countries, cultures, and ethnicities. We therefore declare ourselves to be united in peace for our world. For this makes our world livable for all and pleasant and pleasing to Almighty God. In his 1963 speech entitled World Peace, President John F. Kennedy asks the graduates to whom he was speaking to re-examine their attitudes toward peace, the Soviet Union, and the Cold War. The president also announced that he, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, and British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan had agreed to hold discussions concerning a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty. Finally, he explained that the United States would not conduct atmospheric nuclear tests on the condition that other countries would uphold that same promise. In other words, we all must be on one accord for peace. President Dwight D. Eisenhower stated in his farewell address as president the following: to all the peoples of the world, we pray that all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding forces of mutual respect and love. And I say, if we all do this in all countries, war will never be the tool we reach for to resolve our differences. So today, August 6th, in the year of our Lord 2023, here at the United Nations Plaza, at the International Coalition for Peace rally, to seal this declaration of hope, I say in this song, penned by Jill Jackson and Cy Miller, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin in me. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin in me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Oh. Thank you so much, Dr. Reverend Terry Strong. When you think about the power that we have in this coalition right now, where we're bringing people together of all political ideologies, of all religions, nationalities, what we're doing here is an expression of love, of that agapic love that every single one of you has for the rest of humanity. And I think what we have to take from this day is that we're not going to let these little voices in our heads of cynicism that we're too weak, or we're not strong enough, or everybody else is too stupid. We're going to rise above that and unite around principle. And with that, I would really love to have my good friend here, Scott Ritter. I think all of you know who Scott Ritter is, to come to the stage. Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
We're going to put a microphone on. There we go. Okay. That's about right. I feel like Eddie Vedder up here or something. Everybody can hear me okay? First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's a beautiful day. I want to thank the organizers. This is a wonderful cause. And hopefully we'll be able to take what happens here today and build a community that can bring about the change that we're all looking for. In Chris Nolan's movie, Oppenheimer, there's a very important scene. It's about the man who made the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer. He oversaw the team, the Manhattan Project, that built the bomb. And there's a scene in the movie after the bomb has been perfected and tested, the Trinity device, where Oppenheimer is watching two men in uniform packing up the gadget to send away. And he starts to opine on how it could be best used. He says, you know, if you ignite the bomb at a given out, and they cut him off. They say, it's okay, Dr. Oppenheimer, we got it now. We got it. And thus we transferred the world's most deadly weapon away from the scientists who made it into the men who would use it. And they did use it. 78 years ago today, the United States of America dropped one of Oppenheimer's gadgets on the city of Hiroshima. We don't know how many people died. Ranges from 77,000 to 125,000. We don't know. 3 days later, over the city of Nagasaki, we dropped a second gadget. The total casualties go between 130,000 to 250,000 people dead because of these bombs, but we don't know because most of the evidence vaporized. They don't exist. They're gone. The world's most deadly weapons. The men who dropped these bombs, Paul Tibbets and Charles Sweeney, were men of honor. They're men who were serving their country. Paul Tibbets flew combat missions over Germany in an effort to defeat the Nazi threat. So I don't want to hear anybody say how evil he is. He was doing his duty as an executioner does their duty. He never once voiced any regret for his decision to drop the bomb. To his dying day, he said, "What I did was right." You know, and I have some sympathy for Paul Sweeney, because when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in a field artillery unit that was nuclear capable. And twice a year, we practiced the procedures we would follow if we were called upon to deliver a nuclear device against a hostile enemy force. And I will tell you right now, with absolute certainty, I and every single Marine would have obeyed those orders had they been issued, because we were the executioners. We weren't the ones who came up with the device. We were the ones who were going to use the device in defense of our nation. But then something happened. In the 1980s, rational thinking seemed to grip the United States. There was an amazing event that took place in June of 1982, right down the road here in New York City. 1 million Americans like yourself gathered there and demonstrated against nuclear war, demonstrated for arms control. At that time, the President of the United States was Ronald Reagan, hardcore conservative. He called the Soviet Union the evil empire. A year after this demonstration, ABC put out a TV series called The Day After. Ronald Reagan watched this series, and after seeing the depiction of what life after a general nuclear exchange between the United States and Soviet Union looked like, he turned to his advisors and he said, is this what it's going to be like? And they said, no, Mr. President, it's going to be far worse. It's going to be worse than you can possibly imagine. And that set off a light bulb in Ronnie Reagan's head. And in December of 1987, he signed the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty with his Soviet counterpart, Mikhail Gorbachev, and began the process of getting rid of J. Robert Oppenheimer's device. It was the first time that the United States and the Soviet Union didn't speak of limiting the growth of nuclear weapons, but actually eliminating these weapons from the face of the earth. And you know who participated in that? You know who led the charge? Who's on the front lines in making this treaty possible? People like me, executioners, formally trained to use nuclear weapons, and we're now having our skill sets corralled into getting rid of nuclear weapons. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a good thing. Unfortunately, we were not able to maintain the momentum. We got knocked off track. Arms control today is not happening. The last remaining arms control treaty, New START, expires in 2026, and there is no negotiation taking place today to renew it. And this is happening at a time when both the United States and Russia are talking about spending billions of dollars, some would even say trillions of dollars, in modernizing their nuclear forces. But this time the modernization will take place without any limitations, without any restrictions imposed by arms control. It will literally be a nuclear arms race. Now, what makes this more dangerous in the 1980s? In the 1980s, we operated with a doctrine called mutually assured destruction. It meant you use your nukes, we use ours, we all die, therefore let's not use the nukes. Now, that's a pretty stupid way to live life, but it's better than thinking that you can win a nuclear war. Today, the executioners of Americans' nuclear policy believe a nuclear war can be won. We have a doctrine that says that we can preemptively use nuclear weapons anytime we want to. It's not just me saying this, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take the words out of the mouth of a Trump-era arms control official speaking to the Arms Control Association when he said it is the goal of the Trump administration that every morning Chinese and Russian leaders wake up, they don't know if this is the day we're going to nuke them or not. That's an honest-to-God quote. That's insanity. And yet that's America's policy. Now you'll say, wait a minute, Scott, that's Trump. What about Biden? Biden has the exact same policy of nuclear preemption, a policy that's being implemented without any restraint from arms control. And now we bring in the issue of Ukraine. We have a war going on in Ukraine that's not a war between Russia and Ukraine. It's a war between Russia and the collective West, including the United States. The goals of the United States in this conflict are simple: the strategic defeat of Russia. Now, Russia has said that a world without Russia is a world no one will live in, which means if you try to strategically defeat Russia, they will use their nuclear weapons to protect themselves. Yet the goal and objective of the United States in providing more than $180 billion of U.S. taxpayer funding to Ukraine is to enable Ukraine to strategically defeat Russia. That means that our policy is to commit suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, that is literally the definition of insanity. That is crazy. Now, today in the United States, there's men and women who wear the uniforms of the armed services of the United States who are sworn to protect our nation. Some of these men and women have the job of using nuclear weapons if and when called upon. These are people like Paul Tibbets who will execute that mission. But you know, the people in the world today that have the ability to employ nuclear weapons don't just speak English. They speak Russian. They speak Chinese. They speak North Korean. They speak French. They speak Indian. They speak Urdu. Hindu, I guess. I should be accurate. Apologize out there. I'm a Marine. Sometimes I say things that I shouldn't. But the bottom line is we no longer have a nuclear monopoly. If nuclear weapons are used, this is a global problem. But we are the only nation in the world that has a doctrine of preemption. We are the only nation in the world actively pursuing a policy supporting Ukraine with the goal of the strategic defeat of Russia that will result in general thermonuclear war. We are the only nation willingly trying on a daily basis, not just to have Russia wake up and China wake up, questioning whether or not this is the day we will use nuclear weapons. Every person in the world wakes up wondering if this is the day. Now let's go back to the movie about Oppenheimer, that scene. J. Robert Oppenheimer turns to the men in uniform and tries to tell them about the nuclear device. And they say, "We got it here, boss. We got it here." Okay, but now we know. We can't claim that we don't know. No one in this audience can say, "I don't know about the threat." Nobody in the world today can say, "I don't know about the threat." And it's time that we have that meeting again with the executioners, with the men and women who will execute nuclear policy. And this time we turn to them, and when they try to say, "We got it here," we say, "No, we got it here. It's over. The day of nuclear terrorism is done. We must learn to recapture the spirit of disarmament that gripped Ronald Reagan, and there's no one out there right now that's more conservative than Ronald Reagan, that gripped him in his heart to make him believe that having nuclear weapons was insanity and the best course of action for the United States and the world was nuclear disarmament. We need to recapture that spirit, and I'm hoping that today we can begin a process that leads to a moment next summer when we can put 1 million people back into Central Park and send a signal to those who wish to represent us in the White House that nuclear disarmament is the only direction for the United States, that the day of the executioner is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks. Oh, yeah, I'll take that.
Thank you, Scott Ritter. I think that we should give him another round of applause. Thank you. I think it's very important that people of the military step out to speak against this. A good friend of ours, Ray McGovern, said we need more of these whistleblowers. We need more people like this to take that kind of courage and say and do the things that must happen now. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Scott. Next, I would like to invite Gerald Salenti to come to the stage.
Thanks a lot. A little lower. A little lower. Good.
Speak right into the
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. So, my heart is broken. Here we are at the United Nations. United nothings. United nitwits. Where are all you United Nations for peace? How about pieces of crap? Hey, look at that United Nations, the American ambassador to the United Nations. I remember her well. Madeleine Albright. How about Madeleine not all that bright? The Madeleine Albright that's on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl. And Leslie Stahl asks Madeleine, are the deaths of over 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5 worth the sanctions that Bill Clinton and his war activities have caused? Yeah, that's the Bill Clinton that every time he got caught with his pants down, it's bombs away over Baghdad. Yeah, and Madeleine Albright says, yes, it is. America in the back of all the currencies. In God we trust. What God you talking about? Oh, hey, where are all the Seventh-day Adventists here? You waiting for the 8th day? Hey, where are all you Quakers? You died in an earthquake? Where are all the religions? How come you're not here speaking out for the God that you say you love and adore to bring peace on earth, goodwill to all? Where are you? It's a disgrace. Hiroshima, huh? Yep. Today, they're talking about that humanity for peace. Hiroshima, Nagasaki has got rid of a real man, a real courageous man, a patriot, just said about, they don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of people we killed for nothing. The war was over. So, I do these podcasts every Wednesday with Judge Andrew Napolitano. And he said, you know, the United States put sanctions on Japan. And that's one of the reasons what happened in the beginning of World War II. So I looked it up. Now, I'm not a kid. I've been around a long time. I just looked this up. And it's in History Today. Mainstream propaganda outlet, right? You got to believe what they say. You ready? On July 26, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt seizes all Japanese assets in the United States. Hey, wait a minute, seize Japanese assets? You mean he stole their money and everything else? Yeah, that's right. Why did he do it? In retaliation for the Japanese occupation of French Indochina. Hey, what do I care what's going on over there? And what the hell are the French doing over there in French Indochina? How about calling it Vietnam? How about calling it Cambodia and Laos? How about them stealing all the rubber and the tin and slaughtering the people? Why, those dirty Japanese, they're taking it away from the French. All right? On July 24th, Tokyo decided to strengthen its position in terms of the invasion of China by moving through Southeast Asia. France agreed the occupation of its Indochina colonies. Japan followed up by occupying Cam Ranh Naval Base, 800 miles from the Philippines, where American had troops. What the hell are we doing in the Philippines? That's none of my business. I, Gerald Celente, am an American patriot who observes our founding fathers like George Washington, the cat that crossed the Delaware, yeah, him, his farewell address. Oh, the President of the United States that fought Unlike the little boys that we got here now that love war, that couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. Oh yeah, Obama, I want that guy Assad out of there. No, Salenti, you have to say it properly. You're too Italian when you say that. Assad has to go. Gaddafi has to go. Hey, you want to go take him out? Go take him out. No, we're going to kill all the people over there that we can and get what we can. Could you imagine little Billy Clinton fighting? Could you imagine little Georgie Bush with a pair of cojones smaller than a mothball fighting? No. But this is George Washington, the real fighter. He tells the American people, do not get involved in foreign entanglements, particularly what's going on in Europe, because basically this crap has been going on for thousands of years and it's none of our business. So what the hell are we doing in the Philippines? Oh, you mean stealing what we can steal? Going back to this article. Those lousy Japanese, the Americans, where the Americans had, and the Japanese went into Singapore where the British had troops. Why, the sun never sets on the British Empire. We could kill whoever we want. You have to say it properly. So those Japanese. So what happens is, President Roosevelt swung into action by freezing all Japanese assets in America. Britain and Dutch East Indies followed suit. Oh, the Dutch and East Indies slaughtering all those people? They followed suit. The result, Japan lost 3/4 of its overseas trade and 88% of its oil. They only import 100% of their oil. Can't understand why they bombed Pearl Harbor. Haven't figured it out yet. Look what's going on. World War III has begun. There's going to be a false flag event or a nuclear exchange. They're warning us about it. They're saying it over and over again. And little boys and girls in Business Insider and others are running articles what to do in case of a nuclear attack. Yeah, how about bending over and kissing your butt goodbye? Read the farewell address, not a farewell address, excuse me, the address from President John F. Kennedy to graduating students at American University, June 1963. It's all about peace. He says we shouldn't hate the people in the Soviet Union. Over 20 million of them died in World War II. They lost their homes, their factories, their farms, the equivalent of Chicago East. If we go to nuclear war against the Soviet Union, the life on Earth will be destroyed in 24 hours. That was 1963. As Scott Ritter said, it's 100 times worse now if we have nuclear exchange. 5 months later, Jackie is dead. He ends the speech by saying America will never go to war. And by the way, the only candidate that I support right now is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Think about it. Your uncle was assassinated and your father was assassinated, as he said, by the CIA. What kind of heart would you have? And RFK Jr. is coming out for peace. And he's saying what we're saying for Occupy Peace. Close all the bases overseas. Bring home the troops. Rebuild America. Secure the homeland. This is a disgrace. Where are all the people? They're robbing us of our money. They robbed us of our freedom. How can you be so damn stupid to look up to a guy that's out of his mind like Joe Biden? No, I like Mitch McConnell, frozen stiff. Look at the imbeciles. Hey, how about Dianne Not-So-Feinstein? Almost dead, but hey, I'll tell you what to do. When are the American people going to raise to the spirit of our founding fathers, to bring life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness back to the hearts and souls of the people. Thank you so much for doing this rally, and we have to keep this going. We have to unite. As Scott said, there were over 1 million people in New York City protesting the nuclear war, the nuclear armaments back in the 80s. Hey, where are all you, my generation? All you anti-Vietnam clowns? Oh, you were getting drafted. That's why you cared back then. Where are you now? Where is everybody? We have to stop World War III. It's begun. There's going to be again a false flag event or a nuclear exchange. And the people march off to war like that. And as I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. The economy's failing. People living paycheck to paycheck. Again, you want to know how stupid the people are? 88% of the people swallow the crap spewing out of that little daddy's boy born on third base and thought he had a home run, little Georgie Bush. We're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden. Get him alive. 88% of the people swallowed it. When all else fails, they take you to war. And failure is on the near horizon. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for putting on this rally. And again, if you believe in RFK Jr., do what you can to support him, because they don't want him. They want war. Amen and amen. See ya.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Gerald Salenti. No, I think that's absolutely right. We need all people to come together now to stop a nuclear war. People have got to get over all of their little problems and differences and excuses, right? These are just excuses to not accomplish anything. In fact, quite frankly, it's probably an FBI operation, right? People who are inserting these kinds of cynical views. Oh, I can't work with a libertarian. I can't work with a Democrat. I can't. Blah, blah, blah. People are coming up with all these excuses on why things can't happen. Well, let's just say enough of that. Let's just say enough. So I would like to introduce Garland Nixon to come to the stage. Please.
This. All right. I have to go with my timer because I'm just OCD like that. I may go like 1 second over and then I totally freak out. So what I'd like to do is talk to a different group. I love you people, love you all, but we got to talk to some of the people who are in this group. Certainly we've got some people here from Langley, Virginia, from the Hoover building, the FBI building. You know you're there. Thank you for helping to fill out the crowd. But what I'd like to say, and it's going to go somewhere, is to the people who are doing this stuff. And I'm going to say two words that pops into everybody's mind: bomb shelter, right? When you say they're doing this, most people are going to say, yeah, but they're not scared because they got bomb shelters and they figured that they'll blow us all up and they'll go to their bomb shelters and they'll all be good, right? Which I think there's probably some validity. Most people think kind of, raise your hand. You kind of have that feeling they got bomb shelters and maybe that's part of the plan. Okay, so to them, I'd like to throw this out to you. Just think about the people. You know you're watching it right now. Eventually, let's just say your plan goes down and you end up in the bomb shelter. Because right now, what are they afraid of? They're afraid that the little people will all wake up and rise up against their totalitarian ways and take over things, right? Well, let's just say they get what they want. They end up in a bomb shelter. So there they are in the bomb shelter. Now, in a bomb shelter, you're a billionaire, you're Bill Gates or somebody, you're a senator, you're whatever, you're in the bomb shelter, you're living good. But in a bomb shelter and being who you are, you got to have cooks, and you got to have security, and you got to have people that do things for you, right? Littles, nobodies that clean up and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, when you were out here, you were worried about all the littles rising up against you. But in that bomb shelter, and I know you're watching, at some point, the security people and the cleaning people will start to think, and they'll start to meet, and they'll start to say, you know what? They can't really pay us because there ain't no banks to cash our checks. And if we did, what would we spend them on? We can't go outside because everything's new. It's kind of boring. We're eating powdered eggs. We're drinking our urine that's been purified over and over. That's where we're going to do the rest of our lives. And at some point, they'll realize, wait a minute. In the other luxurious side of this bomb shelter, we got a bunch of billionaires and senators and all these people telling us what to do. But there ain't no such thing as billionaires and senators anymore because all that's behind us. So in reality, in the same way that the rules-based international order means might makes right, I can do what I want to do because I got a bigger military, right? Fangs and claws, back to the days when whoever had the biggest fangs and claws ruled the forest, right? At some point, they're going to realize we're security. We got guns. And we're chefs and cooks. We got knives. And on the other side of this bomb shelter is a bunch of billionaires who are out of shape and they ain't got no weapons. And your biggest fear in this world that we were in, if you get in that bomb shelter, at some point your biggest fear will come true there. And they'll wake up and say, wait a minute, we got the guns, we got the knives, they can't pay us, and they'll come over and have a little talk with you. And they will say, we've come to realize that you guys aren't senators, you're not billionaires. Pardon me. All right.
Let me raise it up.
Thank you. They'll come to realize that everybody's the same, except they got guns and knives and you don't. That's going to be the thing. That the rules-based international order in the bomb shelter is simply going to be the people with the weapons and the power, and the most people are going to have the power. And at that point, you will meet your fate. At that point, the thing that you feared that people here, that the average, regular, everyday working class person would wake up one day and would rise up against you, at that point in your bomb shelter, that is bound to happen. There's no way that doesn't happen. There's no way that people sit in a bomb shelter for 6 months, 8 months, or a year and don't start to kind of philosophize and realize the power dynamics, and you are going to lose in the worst possible way. And they're going to realize that all of their family is dead, that everything they know is gone, and you're the ones that did it. So I say to the neocons and the people in Congress and the people in power who are acting in such a reckless manner with our lives, thinking that maybe somehow they can escape and they can go into the bomb shelter. First of all, what kind of life is that? Living in a bomb shelter until you die at some point because you can't go outside of it. But secondly, inside that bomb shelter, the dynamics that you fear have to come to fruition sooner rather than later. It would be your worst nightmare to be in a bomb shelter. Imagine that. You're a bunch of rich people in a bomb shelter, and on the other side of the bomb shelter is a bunch of people that you screwed over and killed their families and destroyed everything that's dear to them, and they wake up and realize it. I say that to them, just maybe it'll scare them enough with reality that they'll think about not doing it. But that particular little story should be a story for us. Let's not wait for the bomb shelter. The fact of the matter of it is, if we ever come to the reality that there's more of us than there are of them, far more of us than there are of them, we ever come to the reality that we need to stop arguing over Trump or over this guy's a libertarian, this guy's a socialist, this person's a trans person, this person's a whatever, that the things that they bring up to keep us arguing amongst themselves, right? Ourselves. That they always have it's Putin or it's Xi or it's somebody and it's Assad, they always have a boogeyman 7,000 miles away that we're supposed to be scared of. And as long as we're afraid of the boogeyman 7,000 miles away, we won't look at Capitol Hill. We won't go right up to Wall Street. We won't look at the people who are responsible for sending our jobs overseas and doing all the things they've done to make our lives a living hell, and now bringing us to the very doorstep of nuclear disaster. So in the same way that my story of the bomb shelter is a simple one, sooner or later the dynamics are going to be obvious. Let's get the dynamics obvious now, and let's make sure that we understand. Look, in that bomb shelter, the cooks and the security people, and you're going to have technicians. The technicians are going to be much better trained. They're going to have highly educated. You're going to have various groups, but at some point they're all going to come together and realize the smallest group in this bomb shelter are the people that caused all the problems. Perhaps we should address that. They might want to read something about the Donner Pass. I think that may be a consideration. But the bottom line is this: that's where we are now. The people that are causing all the problem is the smallest group, the tiniest fraction of 1%. There's too many of us. Stop obeying, stop doing what you're told, stop accepting their rules. And I'm not saying just run out like a crazy person and streak down the street naked. I'm saying act in a way that gets something done, act uniformly. But we have the power, we have the most people by far, and if we act and act with force and we act with integrity, it's where we're not violent, we're not doing the things that we tell them not to do. Last, I'll say this, and this sums it all up. There's only one way to peace. If you want the world to be peaceful, there's only one way to be peaceful. To be peaceful. The only way to bring peace to the world is to be peaceful. So everyone, when you leave here, ask yourself in your personal life, are you being peaceful? Are you being the person that you want your town, your village, your society, your country to be? So thanks a lot, everybody. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Garland. Thank you, Garland Nixon. Man, you guys are an amazing, amazing crowd here today. Look at all that love in your eyes, the determination. Next, we're going to read a statement that was sent in from the founder of the Schiller Institute, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, who is a personal, very good friend of mine. She titled it the UN Rally on Hiroshima Day, August 6, 2023.
To all the courageous people demonstrating today for peace, we have to wake up people all over the world. Never before was mankind in a bigger danger to annihilate itself in a global nuclear war. Of the more than 12,000 existing nuclear weapons, which are today up to 1,000 times more destructive than the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 3,800 are immediately deployable and about 2,000 are launch on warning. If it comes to nuclear war, as there are politicians today who are recklessly taking into account the use of these weapons, not even a historian will be left to investigate how it could come to this incomprehensible catastrophe. If it happens, the people who die in the first minutes will be the comparably lucky ones, for in the following days, months, and years, all life on this planet will become extinct, both through total radiation and a nuclear winter of many years. Everything what have thousands of generations struggled for, all sorrows and joys, all poems and songs will vanish forever. We demand the immediate controlled destruction of all nuclear weapons. But even more profoundly, we demand the realization of a new global security and development architecture, which takes into account the security interests of all nations of this world, big ones and small ones. This architecture must overcome the geopolitical bloc formation once and for all and put the interest of the one humanity first. The precondition for this is a new just world economic order, which allows every nation and every human being to fully develop all of their innate potentials. Let us unite the peace movements all over the world with the nations of the global south for the realization of a new paradigm in the history of the human species. The new name for peace must be development.
History of the human species. The new name for peace is development. Thank you.
What a wonderful statement and a wonderful peace-loving woman who has led us into this rally and beyond in the International Peace Coalition. And thank you, Anastasia.
Is it on? We love you, Anastasia.
Thank you. I love you too, Anastasia. I'm going to read a statement from the former president of Guyana, Donald Ramata. Dear friends, I send you the best greetings and solidarity on your heroic efforts to bring peace to our world and to prevent any further deterioration to the grave situation existing in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. It is quite possible that this situation can escalate into nuclear conflagration. This is why your action today is of immense importance. It is a fundamental democratic issue. We, the vast majority of people in this world, are opposed to war. We deplore the loss of young lives that are being wasted so wantonly. The reason this is continuing is because a very tiny minority of persons, people who profit from wars and those who have illusions of total world domination, are determined to silence all opposition to their plans to rule the world. Let me be quite clear. A lasting peace is not possible to be built on the insecurity of another country. Russia and the Russian people have the right to security. Trying to destroy Russia and to balkanize the country is a recipe for global disaster. It is also really immoral for NATO to conduct a proxy war against Russia at the expense of hundreds of thousands of young Ukrainian lives. We must demand an end to this carnage now. We must demand that all nuclear weapons be destroyed. Nuclear disarmament is the first essential step towards total disarmament. The great scientist Albert Einstein once said that we cannot prepare for war and hope to have peace. Those words ring even true today than they ever were uttered decades ago. Colleagues and friends, your protest today is taking place on the 78th anniversary of the detonation of the first nuclear weapon in Hiroshima, Japan. In minutes, more than 200,000 persons perished and an untold amount were injured. The nuclear weapons of today are some 1,000 times more powerful and destructive than those that were unleashed upon Japan 78 years ago. NATO leaders want to use those weapons today. They are undoubtedly working on the assumption that the world has forgotten about the catastrophic consequence of what happened so long ago. Let us tell them that we will never forget. Let us tell them to immediately halt their aggression and abandon their programs for future wars. Let us reaffirm the brother and sisterhood of humankind. Let us stay the course until genuine peace based on freedom, prosperity, and justice is achieved. I embrace you all. Signed, Donald Ramatar, former president of Guyana. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your statements, Helga Sepp-LaRouche and former President of Guyana, Donald Ramotar. Next, I'd like to introduce another very personal friend of mine, Diane Sayre, who I think all of you know, living in New York City, who Diane Sayre is and how dangerous she is to the enemies of mankind. Please join us today.
Okay. Thanks. That's fine. Thank you, Anastasia and Irene. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. If there is not a major change in the United States, there is reason to believe that this day, August 6th, would be a good time for us to say our goodbyes. Our goodbyes to each other, goodbye to the planet, and goodbye to the paintings of Rembrandt, the discoveries of Ibn Sina and Albert Einstein, the philosophy of Confucius and Leibniz, the principles of the US Constitution, the poetry of Shelley, and the music of Beethoven. We are steadfastly marching toward the thermonuclear annihilation of everything created by man. Wasn't that the point of dropping the bomb on this day 78 years ago? It wasn't about making the Japanese surrender. That was already under negotiation. The purpose of dropping not one, but 2 bombs on civilian population centers in Japan was to demonstrate that we could do it and that we were willing to do it. Is there anyone here so naive as to believe that we have become more moral since the day that Madeleine Albright declared that although it was a tough decision, the lives of 500,000 Iraqi children was a reasonable price to pay to achieve our goals in Iraq, which apparently we still haven't achieved because we're still there, illegally occupying that nation. You know, the American illegals squatting in nations all over the planet who don't want us there. So it's time for you to disabuse your friends of the notion that some wise person who has somehow managed to stay out of jail inside the Beltway is going to stand up and stop this thing before we go over the cliff. Waiting for that person would guarantee that we were all finished. But having said that, I am not pessimistic. I'm optimistic because I don't intend to allow the annihilation of the human race to occur while I have breath to fight. I know we are here today because we agree that we cannot let this happen. And although they are not here with us in Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, billions of people around the world are saying no to Anglophile, which sounds a little bit like pedophile, hegemony. The leaders of African nations are banding together with Russia, China, Brazil, and others, and they are saying, no, you cannot make us send weapons to Ukraine for your proxy war with Russia. No, you are not going to tell us whom we may elect as the president to lead our people. As soon as these international leaders can hear and see signs of sentient life from within the United States, we will have a global resistance which can liberate us all from the billionaire perverts who seek to divide, rule, and depopulate us. In 1988, Lyndon LaRouche made a bold proposal for the reunification of Germany based on what he knew to be the coming end of the Soviet communist system. They were bankrupt, and he said, "Let us feed Poland in return for the reunification of Germany." 3 months later, he was sitting in federal prison. But the Soviet Union did collapse, and Germany was reunified. But instead of embracing this as a great opportunity to liberate mankind and raise the standard of living worldwide, Maggie Thatcher, the iron-pumping Prime Minister of the UK at the time, and George H.W. Bush jumped on their flying carpets and broomsticks and flew all over the world, starting wars. We had the hideous invasion of Panama, the first Iraq War, war in the Balkans, the Malvinas, and many, many more wars that we don't even know about. LaRouche from prison and his wife Helga from Germany warned the arrogant Anglophiles who believed they were the winners that just as the communist system collapsed, the collapse of the British liberal free trade system was nigh. And when that system collapsed, there would be a great revolutionary change of far greater magnitude than the dissolution of the Soviet Union. That moment has arrived. As Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase gobbles up one bankrupt bank after the next, subsidized by taxpayer-funded bailouts, I am sure that there are plenty of Wall Street and City of London insiders wallowing in their dirty diapers in secret board meetings trying to figure out what to do. I don't know what to do. Let's overthrow Putin. Let's overthrow Xi Jinping. Then it won't matter if we collapse because at least they won't be running the show anymore. Well, it ain't working. The beautiful irony is that the more that they try to destroy other nations, the faster they destroy themselves. I think that's how God intended for things to work. So we're on the brink of thermonuclear war because that is all they have left to do. I and others here are running for office because that we know we have to shift the United States. But I think November of 2024 may be too late. We need Americans in the streets now. We need delegations in 435 congressional districts, visiting your congressman so many times that you are on a first name basis with every single staffer in their office. Anyone who supports one more nickel going to Ukraine should never be elected for anything ever again. Anyone who votes to impose sanctions on nations to starve their children to death for regime change purposes must never be elected again. And they should know that now. Julian Assange should be released from prison immediately. Lyndon LaRouche should be exonerated. NATO should be dissolved. What is needed is an entirely new order among nations based on mutual respect for the sovereignty of their people and the dignity of man. Our enemies are totally morally and financially bankrupt. So we must seize this moment to firmly establish a Republic of the United States of America, which doesn't meddle in other nations' internal affairs, but demonstrates by our own actions within our own borders that truth has standing, that justice will be served, and the people protected, so that through their talents, they may contribute to the betterment of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane Sayre. Let's do one more round of applause for Diane. The woman has so much courage. Next, I would like to invite Muhammad Salim Akhtar to the stand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I give you this?
Oh, okay.
You speak closely to
Yeah.
the mic?
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, speak closely. Thank you.
In the name of Almighty God, the most merciful and the beneficent. It is so, first of all, I want to thank you, Diane, and I want to thank the organizer of this rally and all the friends to invite me to come and share my thoughts with you. My name is Muhammad Salim Akhtar. I represent the American Muslim Alliance. It's a national organization as the national director, and also American Muslim Task Force on Civil Rights and Elections. That is the umbrella of the major Islamic and Muslim American organizations. It is so heartening to see all of you and listen to all the speakers before me. And especially, I always wanted to see Mr. Scott Ritter, and I am glad to listen to him. We have all spoken, most of this spoken well about the danger of the nuclear war and what it has done in the past 78, 80 years ago, and what it can do. You know, most of the people think in the public, general public think that the nuclear is a deterrent to any war, which is not true. So I want to submit to you what we believe in, First of all, the American Muslims, not only the American Muslims, but the Muslims all over the world, they stand in solidarity with you for the sole purpose of the peace and justice. And what we believe is that's part of our faith, that if you kill one human being, just one, it is like killing the whole humanity. But if you can save just the one life even, it is like saving the whole humanity. So with this belief, we are bound to stand in solidarity, not only the American Muslim, but Muslim across the world. Couple of the speakers before me, they already mentioned the Madeleine Albright. Okay. Yeah, to be exact, what he said when somebody asked that how many million or some plus some children who died because of their actions, was that what? And she said simply yes. And I have been wondering since then, what as a Muslim, what I am raised and to believe, the respect and honor of the woman, because the woman is the one, her laps and her belly to endure and save the humanity. She is uh, she's the one who safeguard the culture, the safeguard the human values. And I was surprised how it could become so bad that a woman who's supposed to nurture and supposed to protect the humanity, okay, that can come out from the mouth of a woman who's leading a whole nation in British in that case at that time, okay. But what I tell you, that what we believe, and with this is, you know, by the virtue of this belief, the whole Muslim universe, universally, that stand with you. What I want to submit with you is that we need to address the root causes of the war. We must address all the means, all the reasons, that can create a conflict between individuals, between groups, and between the nations. Now, every single organization, regardless if it is UNO, is a NATO, or any other organization, which is designed in a way that they are doing is a scheme and planning to undermine the less fortunate and the underdeveloped countries up there. And we must stand it and speak out. Now, there is a three-pronged strategy which we normally adopt, and I wish to submit to you what is the three-pronged strategy. Now, I divide it into that one is the mob politics, which we are doing now, is a rally, The other second is the advocacy. We need to do the advocacy into the masses in United States, town to town, city to city, state to state, and across the border, across Atlanta, in Asia, in Africa, to awaken the people of the danger. Because the common people think they cannot believe it. The human has a short memory. They do not remember that's what happened 78 years ago. It can happen again. So we have to awaken up the common people. So that's the advocacy we need to take out, and we need to do the diligent work. We believe, and we do, and we practice in a non-violent struggle. Our struggle is very non-violent. And the third and the last strategy which I may submit to you is that we must use our votes at the polling booth, but I call it electro-politics. When we choose the candidates from bottom up, from a municipality members of the municipalities, state assemblyman, state senator, all the way to the US Senate, and then Congress legislators, and the President of the United States. We should be able to be bold enough and come out as a block vote, and then demand that we must take every single measure to alleviate those scheming and planning to undermine the majority of 95 to 98% of the human race, to have a new colonialism, economic colonialism, and keep the underdeveloped countries, because economics is the reality that causes a rift between haves and haves not. We need to do every single thing. We need to voice up, and we need to stand up, and we need to do what we need to do is deliver the block votes from bottom to top or top to the bottom. Okay, these are the things we need to do. We need to continue to do the hard work. We need to explain that it is the possibility. We cannot close our eyes the danger of the mass destruction. We cannot close that eyes. Okay. In the case of the recent what's happening between the recent war with the conflict right now, and the only solution is the negotiations. After every single war, there has been historically, people are bound to go to the negotiation table. Okay, if we really cherish the sanctity of the human life, we must insist our individual citizens, we must insist the lawmakers, we must become part of the decision-making process instead of we being led by legislators and the president. We must be in the area where we have our say so. Okay, so we need to become the part of the decision makers. We have to utilize all the avenues. It's good. It's very heart-thriving to see the people coming from different places all over, of the nation. And I know there are some small and big gathering going on in many other cities across the world. Okay, but we have to do more than that. I again thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you for the organizer. Okay, and you all have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed Salim Akhtar, the National Director of the American Muslim Alliance. Very important that you were here today. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to welcome the president and founder of the Ghanaian American League of Friends for Freedom. His name is Amadou Diallo. Please come to the stage.
Thank you for coming. Let me give you this mic here.
Got it? Hello, everyone. I think we are a bit quiet here. I think we should know why we are here. We're here because I think humanity is on attack. And it's our responsibility not to be quiet. It's our responsibility to stand and say no to the destruction of humanity. No matter where it's happening, we will be held accountable if we do not speak out. We will be held accountable if we just sit there. Our children, our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren will hold us accountable. What did we do? What did we say to speak out against what is happening against humanity, wherever it's happening around the world? So we are here today to stand against wars across the world, wherever it's happening. So many have lived to see wars, to see the results of wars. We don't want to sit and be quiet without saying anything, without doing anything. Your voice might count. You don't know how far your voice will go, who it will reach out to, what that voice will move, who that sound will move. And that's the reason why we're here. If we become quiet, I guarantee you our children and our children of our children will hold us accountable one day. My name is Amadou Diallo. I'm representing the Ghanaian American League of Friends for Freedom. I'm originally from Africa, West Africa. I've lived, and my family have lived to see wars. We have seen how innocent people get destroyed. Women, children, elderly, the youth who's supposed to be future leaders, destroyed, have no hope. All of you guys have seen the war in Ukraine. You have seen the elderly. You have seen women and children creeping, holding their sticks. They have nowhere to go. No one to help them. I don't care who you be. If you look at that, your tears will run down. Are we just going to sit down and see the elderly creeping down, bombs coming on them, destroy them, women and children? We all have seen stories of children in Ukraine crying. They were with their dad when their dad bombs fall on them and destroy their parents. I have no parents today. Are we just going to sit down and continue to look and see the war continue to go? Wars are going on across Africa. They've been supported by different nations. Women and children and elderly are getting killed. Young people have no future. They are hopeless. And that's the reason why we're here today. No matter where you are, no matter where you live, you have the right to freedom and existence. Today, the consequences of the war in Ukraine, Africa is suffering. Europe is suffering. Asia is suffering. North and South America is suffering. Young people in these nations, in this world, this part of the world, have no hope, brothers and sisters. That's the reason why we're here today. We are calling upon the world leaders to come together and bring an end to this war across the world. Yes. No one wins, brothers and sisters. And that's the reason why we're here today. Peace for humanity. Peace for humanity is what's going to help us bring these leaders together so they can make the right decision and stop wars in Ukraine, wars across the world. For peace we stand. Yes. For peace we stand. And for peace we stand. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for an inspiring speech. And we need to think about the fact that there's really no reason for humans to slaughter each other on the battlefield over disagreements of ideas. All wars start with myths and misunderstandings. Then they are propagated by the lies of our governments and the media. Our next guest we are honored to welcome is Jude Ely. He is a presidential candidate from Haiti, a man of peace and kindness. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. It's an honor for me, first of all, to introduce Gloria Starkins, which is the Dean of UN, and some friends from Japan to be here tonight with us. First of all, please join me in a minute of silence for the victims of war. I am Jude Ely. I'm from Haiti. It's an honor for me to be here to address you at this important and historical event for war and peace. The Haitian community and the diaspora and my homeland asked me to convey our deepest gratitude for this effort for peace. Today, I'm here not just to advocate for world peace, but to start change in my own country, Haiti, which is in turmoil. My heart is heavy, like the heart of all good friends of Haiti. It seems the world has turned a blind eye to Haiti's suffering. Haiti fames is not rooted in its poverty. It is in its history. 1804, Haiti was the first black nation who ended slavery and spread the light of freedom through the world. Why now? Why are we one of the most contentious and troubled nations? Why are we scratching the bottom of the barrel? Haiti is in dire need of unity, inspiration, transformative action to be able to be stable and have peace. Sustainability and equitability development to all cannot reach without true peace. To the world, I say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. It's time for action. Action to eradicate violence. Action to eliminate disparity and injustice in all its forms. War is not the answer. We do not want war. We yearn for peace. And I want you all to repeat that we don't want war, we want peace. We don't want war, we don't want war, we want peace. We want peace in Haiti. We want peace all over the world. Peace and prosperity for all can be achieved with reality of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from fears, food safety. Again, I'm here to tell you all that we will be part of this movement to rebuild Haiti against the war. We don't want war. Haiti is one of the largest countries in the world. To my fellow Haitians, I, Jules Early, I strongly believe all together we will be able to rebuild this nation, make Haiti safe, make Haiti strong, with all good friends of Haiti. Together we're stronger. We are one in the search of peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good.
I'm going to grab your mic.
Please do.
Thank you so much. We must learn to respect sovereign nations. We must agree that they are as empowered and as important as all nations across the world. And we must realize that American imperialism is not beneficial for the overall global humanity. It is my honor to introduce our next guest. He is a Republican 2024 presidential candidate. Aaron Day, thank you so much for speaking.
Okay. Right there.
Can you hear me?
Okay, speak right into the mic.
My friends, we gather today on the brink of disaster.
The doomsday clock stands at just 90 seconds to midnight, the closest we've ever been to annihilation since the height of Cold War tensions in 1953. The Russia-Ukraine war edges us closer to nuclear confrontation. We've seen the devastation. Entire cities reduced to rubble, millions displaced, and civilians killed. From Kiev to Moscow, the fighting rages on. The U.S. has approved over $67 billion in military and economic aid to Ukraine, while steadily expanding NATO eastward in violation of the spirit of the agreement following the end of the Cold War. Russia threatens nuclear retaliation if the West intervenes directly. Yet hawkish politicians downplay the risks, even suggesting limited nuclear war is winnable. But as Eisenhower warned, you cannot have this kind of war. There just aren't enough bulldozers to scrape the bodies off the streets. Sisters and brothers, we stand at the precipice of oblivion. Just a fraction of the thousands of ready warheads ignite global annihilation. So I ask you, is this the world we wish to leave our children? A world forever poisoned by radiation, with survivors struggling atop the smoldering ashes of civilization? Or can we yet summon the wisdom and courage to pull back from the brink? On this solemn anniversary of nuclear destruction, we condemn the heedless rush towards war. We mourn lives sacrificed in all conflicts fomented by imperial greed. And we vow to reclaim America's destiny, not as an exporter of violence and war, but as a beacon of hope. Like Dr. King's dream, everyone here shares a dream that one day all people will stand together and say no to the warmongers driving humanity to extinction. We know this dream is possible because we see the seeds of unity here today. We are parents, teachers, students of all races, faiths, and background, yearning for peace. We've endured endless emergencies together, lockdowns, mandates, censorship, and crushing inflation. We've awakened to the truth that real power resides not in Washington, D.C., but in we the people. Our elites want us to believe that we are powerless, that only elections can bring change. But voting alone has failed because both parties are controlled by the banks and the military contractors, not the people. We cannot vote our way out of endless war and suffering. I am speaking to you here today as a Republican candidate for president, not to ask for your vote, but to ask instead for you to join me in an act of radical noncompliance. You know, and I know that the winner of the 2024 election is going to be the same that it has been since 1948, the military-industrial complex and the banks. Nor as we stand in front of the United Nations can we expect the inevitable march towards one world government to be the solution, as much as Oppenheimer and others may have believed. Indeed, the consolidation of power by NATO, the UN, and other groups like the World Economic Forum ends in complete global tyranny, where every movement is measured and tracked. Behavior is rewarded and punished as determined by a small group of self-interested elites, and free will itself is surrendered to the New World Order. This dystopian nightmare built on fear and control will not make us safer, happier, or more fulfilled. My friends, since Eisenhower's warning decades ago, the military-industrial complex has metastasized to a beast with a voracious appetite. Last year, total U.S. military spending exceeded $800 billion. The Pentagon is missing trillions and has failed 2 consecutive audits. We have over 800 bases in 70 countries worldwide. And who are the beneficiaries of this war machine? Corporations like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing, and a long list of politically connected defense contractors who meet in dark, smoke-filled rooms who have made trillions in death and destruction. They deploy their army of lobbyists to ensure the river of cash keeps flowing, no matter the human cost. The banks are just as complicit in this web of violence and greed. JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and others have arranged billions in loans funding the Iraq war in Ukraine, profiting on interest in enabling military adventurism while crippling nations large and small around the world. These banks have not only harmed us as a nation by funding both sides of endless war, but as individuals. Their predatory practices have exploited minorities and the poor, and their crimes against peace are assault upon humanity itself. They imposed racist redlining and predatory loans on Black and Hispanic families trying to achieve the dream of home ownership. They aggressively market high-interest private student loans that can't be discharged in bankruptcy, trapping generations of students in permanent debt serfdom to banks. They closed bank accounts of political activists and stifled dissent by controlling our access to financial services. And all of us here today are likely targets. They are not our friends. So we must take nonviolent action into our own hands and forge a new future based on free will, abundance, and love. But before we do that, we must defund the war machine, stop World War III, and regain financial sovereignty. How many here show of banks distrust or dislike big banks? So we are unified, both in wanting to stop the destruction of humanity and in a shared distrust and dislike of banks. The big banks fund the unholy trinity of weapons manufacturers, paid-off politicians, and military contractors. We must unite to excise this cancer before it's too late. I call on all people of conscience to unite in a common cause I refer to as fiat exit or fix it. Fiat is government-issued currency like the US dollar, backed by nothing, worthless pieces of paper with no tangible value. IOUs from a corrupt government that has lost the confidence of its people, creditors, and ratings agencies. Exit, leaving the corrupt financial system controlled by central bankers for non-government alternatives like gold, silver, and crypto. Fiat exit, or fix it, is a boycott, a mass exodus of our dollars into self-custody alternatives. Banks are now Ponzi schemes that print monopoly money out of thin air. Banks are no longer required to hold any customer deposits in reserve. What this means is that a small percentage of people converting dollars into alternative stores of value can halt the entire system. Starve the beast. This is how we defund the war machine and regain control. Some label this call for peaceful resistance too radical, but those in power will call any challenge to their profits too extreme. They said the original American revolutionaries were too radical, that abolitionists and civil rights leaders were too radical. If radical means going to the root of injustice, then we must be radical. My friends, as detailed in my book, The Final Countdown, if just 3% of us convert our dollars to alternative stores of value, we could collapse their entire house of cards. Fiat exit ends the tyranny of central bankers who manipulate our currency and enable endless wars. Future generations will tell the story of the day we found our voice and said, enough, the war machine ends here. The Fiat Exit Manifesto calls for mass noncompliance to reclaim our destiny. It is a call to action all citizens should read and can be found at day2024.com. It has already been read 1.1 million times, and I will read an excerpt from it now. Fellow Americans, the time has come for us to unite and take a stand against the encroaching threats of World War III, financial collapse, political persecution, censorship, and global tyranny. We must recognize that change won't come from protest or the political process. It demands our collective courage to engage in mass civil disobedience. Let's come together, boldly say no, and take action to dismantle the corrupt system that seeks to undermine our freedom. We must starve the fiat currency that fuels war. By embracing crypto, gold, and silver for day-to-day commerce, we can challenge this monopoly and secure our freedom. Separate money and state. Our call to action is simple. Participate in an exit of fiat currency, exchanging your dollars for alternative access like cryptocurrencies, gold, and silver. Then tell 3 others to do the same and encourage them to spread the word to 3 more people. Just as the 3% of the population who fought in the American Revolution made a profound impact, so too can we transform our society through collective action. The time is now. Join us in this vital act of noncompliance and reclaim the destiny that belongs to each and every one of us. Are you ready to withdraw your consent and take back your power? Yeah. If everyone here who hears this message, whether here live in New York City or one of the 19 sister rallies from Austin to Austria, Germany to Guatemala, Chicago to Chile, or citizens streaming this worldwide, if everybody took heed, we could end the war machine within weeks. It's up to we the people. Let them hear us. Fix it now. Yeah, fix it now. Let them hear our voices across this land. Fix it now. Let them hear our voices in Kiev and Moscow. Fix it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron Day. We must remember that the military-industrial complex is not here for the benefit of humanity, and we must remember that we, the people, have the power. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the next speaker. He is a 2024 Libertarian presidential candidate, a friend and a colleague in liberty, Mike Termott. Thank you so much.
I need a microphone.
How are you all doing? I have one thing unpredictable to say, and then everything else I say is going to be completely predictable. I'm not a big fan of Republican politicians, but I do like to be interrupted during my talk, so this is going very well for me. I'm not a big fan of Republican politicians, but I got to say that guy Aaron Day is growing on me. How about a round of applause for a guy who has the guts to come out here as a Republican? Everything else I have to say is completely predictable. My fellow Americans and fellow citizens from around the world, you already know exactly what I'm going to say, as though you could read my mind. And I know that you can read my mind because you can read my heart. And I know that you can read my heart because you know my values. You know my values because I, like many of you standing around here today, am an American. Being an American means that we believe in a set of ideals, and a set of ideals that defines us as a nation, not a culture, not a race, but a set of principles that has made our nation what it is when it is at its best. A set of principles and a set of ideals of which we fall short when our nation is at its worst. Ideals like immigration and the opportunity that it promises, independence and the responsibility that that implies, multiculturalism and the tolerance that that demands. In this nation, there is no room for a government of control. There is no room for policies of aggression. There is no room for an environment of intimidation. Just as we must demand the best version of America, so too does the world long for the America of our ideals. We know the world yearns for the sound of idealism because in its silence, evil has grown. Evil grows in the hegemonic projection of power. Evil grows in the imperialistic control of foreign people. Evil grows in the despotic arrogance of nation building. The world awaits a new leadership away from evil. Make no mistake, all leadership comes from values. It is not for American values to change, but for American policy to change by aligning with what we already know true American values to be. Politicians will tell you that it is in our interest for them to exert control, both at home and abroad. You know this to be utter and unadulterated bullshit. Other Americans sense it, and the rest of the world is tired of it. For this reason, ours is a government that operates not in the light, but in the shadows, silencing competing voices, prosecuting whistleblowers, murdering resistant forces. Ours is a government that operates not in our interest, but in the interest of the instruments of power itself. Maintaining the expense and obligation of supporting NATO 30 years beyond its sell-by date. Maintaining the expense and obligation of supporting Ukraine in a war neither of our making nor of our defense. Maintaining the expense and the obligation of supporting a policy of strategic ambiguity toward the independence of Taiwan. Maintaining the expense and the obligation of supporting a military-industrial complex, a veritable war machine, capable of defeating the rest of the world combined. Ours is a government that operates not to minimize the probability of nuclear war, but to maximize the chances of winning a nuclear exchange. It is not in the interest of peace to deploy so-called conventional weapons that so outpace our adversaries that they imagine no other recourse than tactical nuclear weapons. It is not in the interest of peace to continue to widen the gap between American dominance and the ability of rivals who would themselves exert regional influence. It is not in the interest of peace to posture before other nations so as to invoke fear in their populations. It is not in the interest of peace to adopt the world's subjugation as our objective. And because our government's policy is not in the interest of peace, it can never be in the interest of us. Today, here in this place, us means a coalition of Americans and others with little more in common than an understanding of the misalignment of American foreign policy with American values. If we share no other common understanding, let it be that such misalignment will always and everywhere undermine the interests of us as Americans. Only peace can allow the ingredients required for prosperity to spread. Only peace can allocate the resources our economy requires to grow. Only peace can achieve the framework our society needs to develop. Only peace can apply the values our culture cherishes. Only peace can afford the attention our children deserve. Only peace can advance the future of which each and every one of us dreams. A policy that does not align with our long-term interests can never fulfill the best of what America can be, and can never provide the leadership the world needs from America. The world is ready for a message of peace, and Americans are ready to send that message. We are ready to give peace a try because we have been failed by the war machine, a machine that has brought us abject failure in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, a machine that has poured blood onto our hands. So too have we been failed by a corporate machine that has robbed us of our resources, a machine that has robbed us of the opportunity to lead the world toward prosperity. We have been failed by a political machine that has robbed us of the simple dignity of being represented by a foreign policy that reflects our values as Americans. And we have been failed by a media machine that has robbed us of the truth, a truth that embarrasses us with failure, offends us with aggression, diminishes us through control of politicians, and insults us by doing so with our own resources. The time has come to put an end to the reign of the political class, the woke prosecutors, the political self-dealers, the war machine militarists, the crony capitalists, the administrative chieftains, and the money-printing royalty, the self-obsessed media snobs, and the self-appointed victim seers, the entitlement peddlers, and the snake oil pharmaceuticals. The time has come and the time is now for the encroachment on our values and the erosion of our very sovereignty. Sovereignty over our policies, both foreign and domestic, continues apace. Politicians continue the construction of institutions of control. Corporations continue the construction of relationships of manipulation. The media continue the construction of narratives of justification. The wicked sleep not, and so must not we. Sleep not, peace seekers and value keepers. Sleep not, family makers and business builders. Sleep not, patriots, nationalists, liberals, and libertarians like you. Sleep not, my fellow Americans, sleep not, fellow citizens of the world. Sleep not, for the time has come to turn the tables. No longer can we afford to accept the authoritarianism of the political class to declare war on behalf of our nation, to declare war on our values, to declare war effectively on us. The time has come for us to be the ones to declare that war. on their values, on their disdain, on their presumptions to authority, on their institutions, on their apparatus, on their agencies, on their administration. The time has come for us to declare war on their state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, presidential candidate Mike Termott. We must remember that we, the people, must wake the heck up and realize that we have the power and that we must have peace, but only through the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Malcolm Byrne. He is a peace activist. He is a human rights advocate, and he is a Grammy Award-winning producer and record artist. Thank you so much for coming to speak.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm going to start my timer so I don't go overboard here. As I was standing here listening to everybody, I was looking up at that tree right there, and I was thinking about a passage in the Bible where it says that God gave dominion over all life on earth to us human beings, and I was thinking of that little bird up in that tree and wondering what it would say if it knew what we were talking about here. Anyway. I want to dedicate this to Julian Assange, Stella Assange and his family, by the way. For as long as Julian is in prison, we have not a leg to stand on as far as freedom goes in the rest of the world. The title of this is called "The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum." It's a song by Terry Hall, Neville Staples, and Linville Golding, of the 80s band Fun Boy 3. And the lyrics to the song go, "See a clinic full of cynics who want to twist the people's wrist. They're watching every move we make. We're all included on the list. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. No nuclear cowboy told us, and who am I to disagree? Because when the madman flips the switch, the nuclear will go for me. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. I've seen the faces of starvation, but I just cannot see the point. Because there's so much food here today that no one wants to take away. The lunatics have taken over the asylum." That song could very easily have been written just yesterday. And for me, the song perfectly encapsulates the complete madness that's overtaken almost all of our Western leaders, minds and souls, whose collective disconnect from reality, replaced by hubris and greed, seems to open up a Pandora's box of evils. A very early accounting in Homer's Iliad of the contents of Pandora's box reads as such, and I quote, "On the floor of Jove's palace there stand two urns, the one filled with evil gifts, and the other with good ones. He for whom Jove, the Lord of thunder, mixes the gifts he sends, will meet now with good and now with evil fortune. For he to whom Jove sends none but evil gifts will be pointed at by the finger of scorn. The hand of famine will pursue him to the ends of the world, and he will go up and down the face of the earth, respected neither by God nor by man." End of quote. It seems rather convincing to argue that the story of the Iliad may be instructional to us in this present moment as to the final outcome of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine, if one were simply to substitute NATO for the Greeks and the Russians for the Trojans. The Iliad's plot follows several weeks near the end of the Trojan War. Agamemnon insults Achilles, Achilles refuses to fight, and the Greeks begin to die quickly. Patroclus disguises himself as Achilles and leads the Greeks into battle, only to be killed by Hector. Achilles, enraged, kills Hector in revenge. The lunatics have taken over the battlefield. Of course, none of this can come close to describing the utter horror and destruction that Ukraine now endures, ostensibly, at least as far as the general public's mass consumption is concerned, to defend freedom and democracy from those who would do us harm. However, one need only do a perfunctory scanning of the daily videos uploaded to military channels on open spaces and platforms such as Telegram to find images of human beings literally being squashed like bugs, melted to the insides of armored personnel carriers and tanks, and to see desperate human, fragile, mortal frames being annihilated at an alarming rate by the overwhelming firepower of the Russian military, who are outgunning, outmanning, and methodically destroying what was, prior to February 2022, NATO's largest and best trained military force, second only to the United States of America. Arms, legs, and bodies are being randomly blown to bits by landmines, drones, rockets, as terrified civilians caught in this tragic whirlwind orgy of destruction, all in the name of corporate profits and delusional neocon ideology, which now even flirts with the bizarre notion of unlimited nuclear war, a war which has become something like a kind of belief-based religion to individuals such as President Biden, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, Bill Kristol, and the other usual suspects. You've just got to know something is wrong when Henry Kissinger ends up on your Christmas list. And to what aim exactly? To neutralize Russia, the largest and most mineral resource rich and heavily armed nuclear power on Earth, to then open up that country for business and endless corruption and money laundering, much like what Ukraine has now become. A fool's errand is a mild descriptor of this madness. And yes, the lunatics have indeed taken over the asylum. And how else can one rationalize the irrational? Sadly, the general public seems to have given up even trying to understand events. Not through any fault of their own, but I think rather from a mixture of endless propaganda, the likes of which even the great journalist John Pilger told me in a recent interview last year that he's never before seen in his long career as a journalist, having previously covered the wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, to name but a few. There's a 2002 documentary by British filmmaker Adam Curtis entitled The Century of the Self, in which Curtis correlates the original Freudian hypotheses that humans make the most crucial decisions in life based not on rational thought, but rather on emotional responses and impulses. How else would one explain that buying the latest model Tesla will make one sexually attractive to the other sex? Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's American nephew, is heavily featured in the film, is known as the architect of public relations. One of Bernays' first major achievements was helping the Wilson administration sway the general public in supporting America's entry into World War I. Bernays was also highly successful in using PR to convince millions of young women to smoke, all based on the Freudian theory that the most critical decisions we make in life are based on the irrational sexual impulses that drive our innermost desires. By the time the 30s rolled around, the Nazis, ever the great innovators, used these same principles to convince millions of other sane, rational individuals to follow a madman into oblivion, taking tens of millions of lives with them, of which approximately 27 million were Russians. The method that the Nazis used was termed propaganda, and to this day, the word PR and propaganda are interchangeable. As Bernays wrote, and I quote, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country," end quote. To anyone who might say that the beginning process of de-escalation between NATO and Russia is simply a form of appeasement, I say take a look at North and South Korea, which have been in a ceasefire for more than 70 years. It may not be the perfect solution, but the alternative is too frightening to even contemplate. Exceptionalism has no place in this new multipolar world that we now inhabit. We must honor the International Declaration of Human Rights, which states in its first article, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And so I leave you with this one last quote, knowing that lunatics have indeed taken over the asylum. This is from the great humanist of the 16th century, William Shakespeare, taken from The Tempest, Act 4, Scene 2. Oh, wonder how many godly creatures are there, how beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Thank you. Keep up the pace.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malcolm Byrne. It is inspiring to us to realize that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Our next guest and amazing speaker is J.R. Heffelfinger. He is the award-winning director of the film 815 Hiroshima, From Father to Daughter. Thank you so much for speaking.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe I should wait for that song to stop. Should I wait for it or should I just go for it? Okay. This might be the last verse.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's my favorite song.
Wait, explain to the live stream why we're waiting.
Oh, we're waiting on the live stream just because there's a really long song coming from my church across the street. I'm pretty sure that's live, right? That's probably live music. Okay. So earlier this year, on January 24, 2023, the doomsday clock was moved to 90 seconds before midnight. And that is the closest it has ever been since its inception in 1947. Today, as we gather to remember the tragic event that unfolded on this day 78 years ago, the bombing of Hiroshima and shortly thereafter Nagasaki, we are reminded of the power of memory, the significance of our shared humanity, and the resounding call for a lasting peace. John Hersey, American writer and journalist, said, "What has kept the world safe from the bomb since 1945 has not been deterrence in any sense of fear of specific weapons, so much as it's been memory, the memory of what happened at Hiroshima." So my name is J.R. Heffelfinger, and I am the director of a new film called 815 Hiroshima, From Father to Daughter, based on the book, thank you. There it goes. That was a poster. Based on the book by Dr. Akiko Mikamo. The film is a first-person account of the horrors of nuclear war and the resilience of the human spirit, told through the experiences of her father, Hibakusha Shinji Mikamo. 815 begins airing today on PBS stations across the United States. I urge you all to see it and hear Shinji's message, the power of love and forgiveness, and his wish for world peace. So to learn more about the film, please visit 815documentary.com. So I began my speech with the performance of Auld Lang Syne, a song often shared at the dawn of new beginnings. And as we reflect upon the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, let us remember that our world stands on the precipice. Though the hands of time move closer to midnight, we are reminded that our shared destiny is in our hands. So there's a quote by Horace Mann that serves as my North Star, and I'd like to share it with you. He said, "Be ashamed to die until winning some victory for humanity." Now, I'm sure this concept has been said in different ways and with different words, but this concept has echoed through the corridors of time. These words urge us to carry the torch of progress, to strive for a better world, where the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not repeated, where justice, compassion, and peace are cherished and celebrated and are real. So may the bravery we exhibit, the revolutionary acts of love and compassion we express and reflect in our lives, serve as our clarion call, urging all of us to awaken from the slumber of complacency and embrace the urgency of the moment and make our voices heard. So be ashamed to die until winning some victory for humanity. Thank you, and may peace be your guiding light. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We must watch the horrors of what humanity does to each other so that we can try and remember that there's no reason for us to destroy the lives of others here or abroad. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jose Vega. He's an interventionist. He is an amazing, brilliant peace activist. He single-handedly does everything for us, and I am so honored to be the one to announce him, and he literally is my favorite human. Thank you so much, Jose.
Okay. Oh. Thank you. All right, Dave. You gotta let me talk first. And actually, before I begin anything, none of this would have been possible. None of us would be here right now if it wasn't for Irene and Anastasia. Yes, please give them all the rounds of the applause. They deserve it all. I'm honored to be the last person to close us out. And I also want to thank people like Jimmy Dore, who put me on his show. It allowed us to raise the funds that we needed to put on this rally. And if people can continue to support us and donate us for the next action that we put on, because this does not end here. What we've done here is we've set up an amazing foundation and beginning for a process, a continuous process. In the last minute, all of you came together to help organize this rally. I went on Jimmy Dore's show to put out a plea. I said, if you can organize this rally, we'll see what happens in the future. What did that lead to? It came into last-minute endorsements from some high-profile people. And that was because of you. RFK Jr. gave an endorsement of this rally, which we played at the beginning of the live stream. We didn't play it here for the people, but we played it for the live stream, and hopefully people after this can go and see that. We had other people endorsing this rally, like Jimmy Dore, as I said. You know, we've had people from the Gray Zone endorse this rally as well. And so what today is a declaration around the world that humanity declares peace as the only way forward. We are a pro-peace rally, not necessarily just anti-war. To be pro-peace, of course, includes anti-war. But pro-peace means pro-development around the world. It means getting rid of world hunger. It means making sure that everybody has an equal right to education and access to some of the best sources and tools around the world today. And, you know, one of the things that we're having after this rally is we are having the Mozart Requiem. Since today happens to be the 78th anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing, Mozart's Requiem is very fitting because Mozart didn't write the music for those who have passed away. He wrote it for the living. It's a remembrance song. And one of the sections you'll hear from the Requiem goes as follows: eternal grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. That is for all of you to remember those that have fallen before us, those who've perished in an awful tragedy, something that should never happen again. For you to remember them and act in their name and act in their image and keep their image alive. That's what we're here for. That's what this rally is a declaration of. And today, we face something much, much worse, the extinction of the entire human race. You know, there's a book called From No High Ground. Hiroshima, it says in the book, Hiroshima had been spared the most faithful results of the war, while almost every other urban area in Japan had been bombed by the B-29. Hiroshima had felt the concussions of only 12 enemy missiles in 3.5 years of war. And only about a dozen people had been killed. And then what happened? Out of nowhere, as a surprise, this bomb came down. And then 3 days later in Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 people. It came out of nowhere. And our circumstances today are no different because a bomb will just happen out of nowhere. And Scott Ritter can tell you a whole lot more about that. But what makes me optimistic about this world that we live in today is that not only here in New York City, but we've had dozens of sister rallies around the world gathering, all making the same formal declaration: no more bombs, no more war. Peace is our solution, and peace is the answer. And so we demand nothing less than peace. A lot has been said today, but I think the biggest expression, or the best expression that came out of today, was the expression of love from every single speaker that has been felt around the world. We meet here today in front of the United Nations to tell the world that this is an international process that started here today. And so I just want to end off by saying thank all of you, because this is a worldwide effort. It's not just centered here in New York City, not just centered around the people who are gathered around me right now. It is the entire world crying out that today we have focused our efforts into one guided laser to tell the world peace, not war, and not violence. So please join me today at 6 o'clock at All Souls Church for the Mozart Requiem. I will be singing in it. Other than that, please continue to spread the love and the momentum we've built here today. We carry it forward because this is the beginning of a process. It doesn't end here. It only starts here. And I'm so excited to see where we go after this. I'm so excited to see what all of you are going to do and organize in the name of peace and in the name of humanity. And so with that, folks, this has been Humanity for Peace.
We're going to do some closing remarks. Humanity for Peace represents something new. It's a new movement. What everyone should realize here is that the coalition that forms the basis of Humanity for Peace consists of groups from across the political spectrum, from the left, the right, the middle, and the like. The rallies for Humanity for Peace are all across the world and this nation. And this rally represents the beginning of the movement, where we will take human action to collect ourselves into groups of people that will implement real change in our legislatures, our governments, state, local, and federal. Thank you so much for coming, Anastasia.
Yes. Thank you, Irene Mavroukakis. I couldn't have done this without you. This has been an amazing event. I'm actually been trying the whole day not to cry, looking at everybody else in the audience and everybody coming here today. Bravo. Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you for coming out today and refusing to give in to all of this nonsense. All of this nonsense has been shoved down our throats to prevent people from action. And so, like other speakers, I want to encourage, I too am an interventionist. I want to encourage others to join us in nonviolent direct action. This is a new movement for peace that has come about in the world. We must organize like crazy to stop nuclear war. And we're planning more events. Coming up September 1st, we'll be planning an event. Please keep your eyes and ears out. We will let you know. Make sure you sign up on the website. We will keep you involved, humanityforpeace.net, and we'll be planning more rallies and interventions around the world as well. Thank you. Join us at the church today at 6.
We'd like to invite all the speakers to come up to take a picture together to show unity. If you can please come up and we'll take a picture. Thank you so much. And then we can have crowds and organizers join subsequent. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. God is good.
I'm here for my picture. I'm here for my